Hello everyone! Welcome back to our video tutorial in Math 9. For this video, I will discuss to you about trigonometric ratios of special triangles. Also, I will guide you on how to answer learning task number 1 in your Learner's Packet Week 2. Okay, so without any further ado, let's start. Okay, so engagement learning task number 1. Complete the table below. Okay, so as you can see, we have here three special angles. So we have 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and 60 degrees angles. So using the 30, 60, 90 degrees, and 45, 45, 90 degrees special right triangle, mako-complete natin ang table na to without using any scientific calculator. Okay, so unahin muna natin yung 30, 60, 90 special right triangle theorem para malaman ang 6 trigonometric ratios ng 30 degrees at saka ng 60 degrees angle. Para sa 30, 60, and 90 degrees special right triangle, we know that if the opposite side of 30-degree angle, so this one, let's say that is equal to 1, yung hypotenuse niya ay magiging equal to 2. Bakit? So kasi, ang sabi dito sa theorem niya, hypotenuse is equals to 2 times the shorter leg. So since ang shorter leg natin ay 1, so doble daw dito ay yun ang sukat ng hypotenuse. Tapos, ang longer leg naman niya is equal to the square root of 3. Because according to its theorem, longer leg is equals to the square root of 3 times the shorter leg. So, since the shorter leg natin is 1, so 1 times the square root of 3, so constant yun. Yun daw ang sukat ng longer leg ng 30, 60, 90 degrees right triangle. So, ngayon, hanapin muna natin yung 6 trigonometric ratios ng 30 degrees angle. So, ito muna yung i-fill in natin. Unahin muna natin ang primary trigonometric ratios natin, which is yung sine 30 degrees, cosine 30 degrees, and tan 30 degrees. Dahil 30 degrees ang reference angle natin, bali itong side na to, nakaharap niya, ito yung magiging opposite side natin. Tapos, etong side naman, nakatabi niya, ito yung adjacent natin. And of course, yung kaharap ng 90 degree angle natin, yung side na yon, ang tawag sa kanya ay hypotenuse. Okay, so gamitin natin ang SOH-CAH-TOA. So para sa sine 30 degrees, ang gagamitin natin ay ang SO, which stands for sine is equals to opposite over hypotenuse. So dito sa ating figure, ang opposite natin is 1, ang hypotenuse natin is 2. Okay, so we have sine 30 degrees is equal to 1 over 2 or 1 half. Okay, so yun yung value ng sine 30 degrees. Okay, next naman, para sa cosine 30 degrees, ang gagamitin natin ay ang CAH, which stands for cosine is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so dito sa ating figure, ang adjacent natin is the square root of 3 at ang hypotenuse naman natin ay 2. So we have cosine 30 degrees is equals to the square root of 3 over 2. So the square root of 3 over 2, so hindi na sila pwedeng i-simplify. So as is na siya, yun na yung value niya. Yan. Okay, next. For tan 30 degrees or tangent 30 degrees, ang gagamitin naman natin ay ang TOA or opposite over adjacent. Okay, so ang opposite natin ay 1. Ang adjacent natin is the square root of 3. So we have tan 30 degrees is equals to 1 over the square root of 3. Okay, so hindi pa ito yung final value ng 30 degrees natin kasi yung denominator niya ay meron pang radical sign. So, kailangan pa natin siyang i-rationalize. So, alam niyo naman na siguro kung paano i-rationalize, di ba? Okay, so i-multiply natin ito sa the square root of 3, both the numerator and the denominator. Our product is the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so because 1 times 1 is 1, and then copy the square root of 3. Here sa denominator, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is equals to 3. Ito na yung final answer natin. The square root of 3 over 3, so yun yung value ng tan 30 degrees natin. So, para dito naman sa mga secondary trigonometric ratios, kukunin lang natin yung mga reciprocal ng primary trigonometric ratios natin. So, ibig sabihin, baliktarin lang natin yung mga to. Tapos, saka natin isi-simplify if needed. Alam natin na ang reciprocal ni cosecant ay yung sagot ni sine. So, ang reciprocal ng 1 half is equal to 2 over 1 or that is 2. So, para sa secant naman, ang reciprocal niya ay si cosine. I-solve natin yan dito. So, second 30 is equals to, so yung reciprocal ng cosine is 2 the square root of 3. So, since ang denominator natin ay merong radical sign, so kailangan pa natin siyang i-rationalize. So, i-multiply natin siya, both the numerator and the denominator, ng the square root of 3. And that is equal to 2 the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so paano natin nakuha yan? So, 2 times 1, hindi po 2 times 3. Okay, so ulitin ko, ito ay magkaiba dahil ito walang radical sign, ito may radical sign. So, ito si 2, i-multiply lang dito sa 1, sa invisible 1. So, 2 times 1 is 2, and then copy the square root of 3. And dito naman, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so since hindi na pwede silang ma-simplify, so ayan na yung final answer natin. So, ang value ng second natin is 2 the square root of 3 over 3. Let's have the cotangent. So, ang cotangent naman, ang reciprocal naman niya ay si tangent. So, ibig sabihin, cotangent 30, kukunin natin yung reciprocal ni tangent, which is 3 the square root of 3. Again, so kailangan natin i-rationalize kasi may radical sign ang kanyang denominator. So, multiply natin siya ng the square root of 3. So, we have 3 times the square root of 3 is equals to 3 the square root of 3. And here is over 3. Okay, so as you can see, pwede pa natin siyang simplify si 3 at saka si 3. Yan. So, 3 divided by 3 is equals 1. So, wala nang natira dito, 1 na lang. Kaya, ang natira na lang ay the square root of 3. Okay, so ang value ng cotangent natin is the square root of 3. So, ayan, nakompleto na natin yung 6 trigonometric ratios ng 30-degree angle natin. Mag-jump muna tayo dito sa 60 degrees angle kasi ito pa rin ang figure ang gagamitin natin. Unahin na natin yung primary trigonometric ratios, which is sine 60 degrees, cosine 60 degrees, and 60 degrees. Since ang reference angle na natin ay 60 degrees angle na, so yung side naman na kaharap, ito na yung magiging opposite, at yung side naman nakatabi niya, yun na yung magiging adjacent. Okay, so kanina, dahil si 30 yung reference angle natin, ito yung opposite niya, ito yung adjacent. Pero dahil 60 degrees na yung reference angle natin, ito na yung opposite, ito na yung adjacent. So, gamitin natin ulit yung SOH-CAH-TOA to answer the following. Para sa sine 60 degrees, gagamitin natin yung SOH, which is sine is equals to opposite over hypotenuse. Yung opposite natin dito ay c, the square root of 3, and hypotenuse natin is 2. So, sine 60 degrees is equals to the square root of 3 over 2. So, eto na yung sagot natin para sa sine 60 degrees. Okay, next. For cosine 60 degrees naman, ang gagamitin natin, so stands for cosine is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So, ang adjacent natin ay 1, hypotenuse is 2. So, cosine 60 degrees is equals to 1 over 2 or 1/2. And then yung tan 60 degrees, TOA naman yung gagamitin natin. So, tan is equals to opposite over adjacent. So, ang opposite natin ay the square root of 3 over adjacent na 1. So, we have the square root of 3 over 1 or the square root of 3. Para naman sa secondary trigonometric ratios ng 60 degree angle natin, so katulad ng ginawa natin dito, kukunin lang din natin yung reciprocal ng primary trigonometric ratios. So, cosecant, ang reciprocal niya ay si sine. So, kukunin lang natin yung reciprocal niya. So, cosecant 60 degrees is equals to yung reciprocal nito, which is 2 over the square root of 3. I-rationalize natin to para matanggal natin yung radical sign dito sa denominator. So, multiply natin siya sa the square root of 3 numerator at sa denominator. So, 2 the square root of 3 is 2 the square root of 3. Then, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3. Okay, so, yan yung cosecant 60 degrees natin. So, para naman sa second 60 degrees natin, so, ang reciprocal niya ay si cosine. So, eto yun. So, babalik ka rin lang natin to. 1 over 2, so that is 2 over 1, or that is 2. And then, for cotangent naman, ang reciprocal niya ay si tangent. So, cotangent 60 is equals to, ang reciprocal ng the square root of 3 is 1 the square root of 3. So, kailangan natin i-rationalize para maalis itong radical sign. So, multiply natin siya sa the square root of 3. 1 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 3, and the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is equals to 3. And that is our answer for cotangent 60 degrees. So, next, to answer the 6 trigonometric ratios of 45 degrees angles, we will use the concept of 45, 45, 90 degrees special right triangle theorem. Sabi dito sa theorem niya, Una, the legs are congruent of a 45, 45, 90 degrees angle. So, ibig sabihin, itong dalawang legs niya ay pareho ang measurement. Let's say, for example, ang measure ng leg na to is 1. So, ibig sabihin, ang isa ay 1 din. Tapos, yung measurement naman ng hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times the length of a leg. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, dahil ang leg natin ay 1, so 1 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 2. So, yun yung hypotenuse natin. So, unahin muna natin sagutan yung primary trigonometric ratios ng 45 degrees angles. So, kunyari, ito na lang yung reference angle natin. So, kung ito yung reference angle natin, ito yung magiging opposite niya, tapos ito naman yung magiging adjacent. And of course, ito yung hypotenuse natin. Gamitin natin ulit yung SOH-CAH-TOA. So, for sine, 45 degrees. So, muna yung gagamitin natin, opposite over hypotenuse. So, yung opposite natin is 1, and then hypotenuse is the square root of 2. So, we have sine 45 degrees is equals to 1 over the square root of 2. So, naka-radical ulit yung denominator, so kailangan natin siyang i-rationalize. So, i-multiply natin siya sa the square root of 2 naman. So, 1 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 2, and the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is equals to 2. So, yan yung final answer natin for sine 45 degree. Okay, next. For cosine 45 degrees naman, so ito naman yung gagamitin natin yung ka, adjacent over hypotenuse. So as you can see, pareho lang ang value ng SOH at ng ka sa 45, 45, 90 degrees angle natin. Yan. Diba? Pareho lang sila ng sine 45 degrees. So ibig sabihin, pareho lang din sila ng magiging answer. Yan. Okay. So for tan 45 degrees naman, so TOA, opposite over adjacent. So, ang opposite natin ay 1. Ang adjacent natin ay 1. So, 1 over 1 or 1. Okay, so yan yung tan natin. Para naman sa secondary trigonometric ratios ng 45 degrees natin, so kukunin lang din natin yung reciprocal ng primary trigonometric ratio sa 45 degrees. Yung cosecant, ang reciprocal niya ay si sine. So, ang sine natin dito ay the square root of 2 over 2. So, pag binaliktad natin yan, magiging 2 over the square root of 2. Since naka-radical pa yung denominator niya, i-rationalize natin by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 2. So, 2 the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2 the square root of 2, and the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is equals to 2. Okay, so dito, pwede pa natin i-simplify yan. 2 divided by 2 is 1, then 2 divided by 2 is 1. So, ang natira na lang dito ay the square root of 2. And that is our cosecant 45 degrees. O, diba sabi ko kanina, magkatulad lang naman si sine and cosine. So, ibig sabihin, yung reciprocal nila, same lang din. So, kung ito ay the square root of 2, ito ay the square root of 2 lang din. Okay, so next. For cotangent naman, ang reciprocal niya ay si tangent. So, since ang tangent 45 degrees natin ay 1, so ang reciprocal ng 1 ay 1 din. So, yun yung cotangent naman natin. Okay? So, yan, nakompleto na natin yung table. Okay, so that's all for learning task number 1. See you again in my next video. Bye-bye!